Overwatch is the single worst game on the face of the planet. People know this, but I will remind you, there was a time, not so long ago, when people were genuinely excited for the future of this game. Now, I played Overwatch all the way back in its beta, and I kept playing for a few years, and then I got bored of it, and I didn't play all that much until Overwatch 2. I gave it another try, and it was so bad that I quit. I imagine this was the case for a lot of people, probably most people who enjoyed the original game, but I decided to give the game one last try after a few years of absence, and what I found was a sincere effort by Blizzard to make things better for once. Yeah, imagine that. Whether or not it's enough is debatable, but I didn't even expect them to try. I didn't expect me to care either, and there's a reason for that. Do you remember the launch of Overwatch 2? Let's go back real quick. Blizzard had just swapped the game from 6v6 to 5v5, and there was a massive influx of new players. At a glance, you would have thought that reworking the whole team dynamic would have meant huge changes, but they were actually kind of minuscule, so there was this severe disconnect between returning players trying to get a feel for what was essentially just a balance patch, and new players trying to figure out the controls for the first time. Right off the bat, the first thing Blizzard had to do was prevent these players from ending up in the same lobbies, so like a bunch of fucking geniuses, they completely broke the rank system and boosted the shit out of new accounts. Yeah, drop them in gold, drop them in plat, erase the distinction between low and mid elo. That was what they did, and I could dig up the statement where they admitted to this shortly after launch, or you can just take my word for it, this happened and it was a disaster. So as someone who played in mid elo, that was pretty frustrating and made Overwatch 2 feel like it wasn't an experience meant for me. But I could get over that. I could. You know what else happened at launch? Switching to 5v5 meant the complete removal of off-tank, which was the second tank in a 6v6 match. Now you only had the main tank. So as a Diva 1 trick, my role had just been removed from the game, so that was something, and I couldn't fall back on my old main because that was Bastion, who had been completely reworked and my playstyle for him was also removed. And you know what? That much I could still handle. So let's put our thinking caps on here. You have me playing an off-tank in the main tank role. Already makes my games kind of tough, and you have me constantly playing with brand new players for some reason, so what happens is, new players underperform, it hurts their ego, they look at their team and go, okay, I'm a DPS. If I blame the supports, I have to argue with two people. If I blame DPS, I'm blaming myself too. Hey, I got it, let's all gang up on the one tank. So you had that, you had these people who would flame you and usually grief the entire match too. Again, I can handle all that, it's not a big deal. But here's the thing, they don't just flame you, they report you. So again, like a bunch of fucking geniuses, Blizzard breaks the report system. Doesn't matter what you actually do, if you type any messages and get a certain number of reports, you're chat restricted. So naturally, as it was designed to happen, I got chat restricted without breaking a single rule. And you know what? I could handle that too. No, it wasn't until after I got chat restricted that I couldn't handle this shit anymore. Because now teammates flaming me would get bored, they would run it down until we lost, and then tell the lobby to report me for it. Why? Because I wasn't communicating. So not only did I have all these completely useless teammates making completely unwinnable games, I genuinely thought I would get perma'd if I kept playing with such a pointlessly toxic player base. The more I reflect on it, the more I remember just how disgusted I was with both Blizzard and the fucking creatures this dogshit multiplayer industry breeds. Tons of elo-inflated new players ruining games, doesn't matter. Punish MKUltra for it. 5v5 was a mess and balance patches were extremely rare, doesn't matter. Punish the fucking Miku guy. Genuinely, Overwatch 2 at launch for me was the single worst gaming experience on the market, so of course I fucking quit. And for 2.5 years, I never looked back. Why would I? They wanted me to be their dog sitter and they wouldn't dare let me talk back. No, I was never, ever going to forgive that. I had quit the game for good. So after quitting, I pretty much didn't hear a thing about the game until suddenly it turned out Blizzard canceled the PvE. Nothing shocking there, that was the whole point of Overwatch 2, but screw it, you know, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Then right after that, they put the game up on Steam. That was a surprise. I think I felt bad for them at that point, because the fact they didn't foresee the ensuing review bomb meant the problem wasn't that they didn't care, it was that they were genuinely stupid. But really all I remember was the lazy, awkward looking banner they had on the Steam page. Things dropped off for a while until Overwatch Classic came out, where you were supposed to be able to play all the release heroes in their original balance state. But actually the only heroes you could play were Widow and Reinhardt, because apparently people are a lot better at aiming now than they were in 2015. 16? Whatever. Eventually, after a couple of years, I ended up setting my grudge aside and giving Overwatch one last shot. And I'm trying my hardest to make up a reason for this, so I don't have to admit it was because I like how Juno looks. Look, the point is, I came back, this was probably in May 2025 for those of you in the future, and I was amazed to see that despite all odds, Blizzard wised up and backpedaled on a lot of their horrible decisions for Overwatch 2. 6v6 was back, loot boxes were back, capture point maps were still gone, but hey, 6v6 was back. So the first thing I did, well actually, the first thing I did was immediately disable all forms of communications. I don't care. If you want to talk to me, you can email me. But then, for the first time in way too long, I played a game of Off-Tank Diva. And in true old school fashion, I did not give my backline any attention, and we lost the game. I had a wonderful time. I'll never know how my team felt, but I felt great. And it turned out, backpedaling was not the only feature Blizzard had worked on. They had also added some new features, the best of which was this level system. Every match your character starts at level 1, and by just doing anything, you progress through to level 2 and 3, and you get to pick a unique hero perk every time. It may augment an ability, or even add an ability, or do nothing interesting at all, like in the case of Widowmaker. Yes, this mechanic comes straight from Heroes of the Storm, which was made by Blizzard, so all is right in the world, and finally, Overwatch 2 is able to distinguish itself from the original without being so much of a direct downgrade. I ended up playing Diva non-stop for a couple of days. I dabbled in a little bit of competitive 6v6, which, by the way, is the open queue mode, which meant no role queue, which is great. And anyways, coming back to comp after years of absence, I expected to be like the average Overwatch teammate, confused and completely useless. But I honestly felt like I was picking right back up from where I left off, and within about a week or two, I was back where I felt I belonged in Plat. Of course, I hate comp, and I only play it to beat the gold allegations, so I stopped after that and remembered what I was actually here for, which was Juno. Now listen, this may sound a little funny to some of you guys, but I don't actually like playing support all that much. 95% of Overwatch support is healing. You might as well just call them healers, because support can be a wide range of things, much wider than what these characters offer. But alright, I have to admit, even though I started playing Juno for other reasons, I actually really like the hero's gameplay. For most of the match, you're just shooting your allies with your gun. Not a total thrill, but still somewhat engaging compared to most healing methods in this game. What makes Juno great is her ability. First off, she gets to double jump, she can glide a little bit, and she can also just float in midair for a while with her left shift. So it's kinda like Mercy mobility, but without relying on the positioning of teammates. She also has this torpedo ability where you lock onto an enemy or ally in your field of vision and shoot a torpedo to heal allies and damage enemies. This ability is fucking brilliant, guys. This is genius on display right here. And then she gets this dumbass little speed boost ring, but having the torpedoes combined with high access to mobility and aerial positioning gives Juno a very unique playstyle, especially for a support hero. You have the whole sky at your disposal to get a good vantage point to get shit done, but you're squishy as hell, so you have to utilize cover. But if you can't get a good view of everyone, you're missing out on impact. Now the nice thing is you can escape from anywhere in a pinch, so you're not just sitting there with a healing beam, you're flying around, utilizing the map, engaging with the enemy team, and taking risks. It's a really interesting way of interacting with the game, and all of her stuff feels really satisfying to use. So it should be no surprise that I was pretty much addicted to playing this character for probably a month. Just queuing up game after game after game, and it felt great because compared to League, which takes fucking 30 minutes, Overwatch matches were really short. I was having a great time. I was getting pretty comfortable with my new character, so about a week in, I started queuing for role queue comp. And a week later, they placed me into Diamond. Yeah, the guy who's played for 2 weeks over the last 2 years. The guy limit testing as a healer, he was Diamond. I mean, Blizzard doesn't give a lot of info on their rank distribution, but that puts me somewhere around the top 10% of players. Now you gotta understand, I really do not give a shit about rank. I honestly find higher rank gameplay to be boring, if not flat out miserable. I learned to the point where I can play well and have fun, and I don't dare optimize beyond that. Diamond was not something I wanted, was not something I set out for, was not something I earned. It's not that I'm especially good at this game. The truth is, people just really suck ass at Overwatch. I see you guys on my team. I see the type of shit you're doing, the types of unwinnable plays you guys go for. A lot of Overwatch players don't give any thought to how the game is played at a macro level, and if it wasn't for my thousands of matches of League, I probably wouldn't either, because it's really not that interesting. Still though, Diamond? You guys are letting me walk into Diamond? Without comms? Without knowing the meta? Without any knowledge of the reworks or any of the perks or whatever the fuck you people have been changing over the last few years? Listen, if you're in lower ranks and you're feeling bad about yourself right now, don't. Because I never would have climbed from low rank up to Diamond. It would have been possible, but more time and trouble than I would ever deem worth it. Because, like every shitty competitive game out there, a match of Overwatch is not won by the best player, it's lost by the worst player. Unless you're way outside of your rank, that's just how a team game works. So don't sweat it. Because really, this said more to me about the game itself rather than its players. Yeah, people do manage to suck at it, but that doesn't change the fact that Overwatch is a pretty simple game. It didn't take long to relearn Tank, it didn't take long to master Juno, and while it was ridiculously fun at first, the more I played, the less impactful it felt. Matches began to feel longer, heroes began to get boring, and despite overperforming most games, I didn't feel any satisfying impact on the outcome of the match. I had one last boost of fun playing Bastion. I call him that because of MKUltra, shout out to MKUltra, but I was a Bastion main all the way back in the 2015 beta, and what I loved about this character was that he was a one-man army, and you could tell just by his appearance, that blocky, heavy, military machine look he had. Then the Overwatch 2 rework turned his playstyle into less of a one-man army and more of a the fuck even is this? And now he looks like a McDonald's toy, so at launch, I wasn't very happy with this new Bastion, and look, I still don't like his primary fire. I still think the limited turret form throws you way off tempo. I still think the grenade just isn't enough compensation, but what I was really missing was the self-heal. That was what made Bastion so great, that little bit of independence, that freedom from reliance on your healers. Losing that meant losing Bastion's identity, but they brought it back, so that was nice. For a couple of matches, but then that got boring too. Eventually, I finished the Battle Pass, which got me the Juno Mythic, and suddenly I didn't feel much like playing the game at all. I did end up coming back for the next pass, which had a Diva Mythic, but other than that, nothing. I feel like the game's casual just isn't casual enough to be any fun. I hate to do this in 2025, but honestly, I really miss the feel of casual TF2. Now that is how you do casual. Overwatch casual is just ranked minus. It feels lame to try hard, it feels lame to troll, and it feels like nothing to just space out in. It's hard for me to grasp what exactly happened that turned me off from this game, but I think Overwatch 2 just lacks a certain depth that a great game needs. And it's always kinda lacked that, which is why it plays more or less the same as it did in 2016. Nevertheless, my experience this time around was a lot better than the launch days, and I think Blizzard is taking this game in the right direction for once. But for me, it's not something I feel like I could play all the time, and that's fine. I don't even like the games I play all the time. So Blizzard, congratulations, I don't hate the game anymore. And to the rest of you out there watching, hit subscribe and we'll talk again someday.